And I've been muted on Twitch and YouTube this entire time. Hi, welcome. I'm not going to go through all of that all over again. Um, so, yeah, um, we are on chapter 2, part 4 of Orientalism. And we are still talking about the romanticized Orientalism that was brought about by the likes of Flaubert and all of these French and British writers who thought that they were experts on a place they didn't live or didn't stay in for any extended period of time. And so, yeah, let's get into it. Where did we stop? Oh, right, here. In addition to their general cultural attitudes, Neval and Flaubert brought to the Orient a personal mythology whose concerns and even structure required the Orient. Both men were touched by Oriental Renaissance as Quinet, but others had defined it. They sought the invigoration provided by the fabulously antique and exotic. And this is where the exotification of the Middle East comes in, and even the Far East, obviously. Everything that is considered Oriental has been at some point exotified to the point that women are seen as exotic. And I get a lot of messages in my DMs saying, "Oh, are you single? I've never had Indian before." To which I respond with the directions to the nearest Indian restaurant. Because the fuck? For each, however, the Oriental pilgrimage was a quest for something relatively personal. Flaubert seeking a homeland, as Jean Bruno called it, in the locales of the origin of religions, visions, and classical antiquity. Neval seeking, or rather following, the traces of his personal sentiments and dreams, like Yorick before him. For both writers, the Orient was a place therefore, of déjà vu, and for both, with the artistic economy typical of all major aesthetic imaginations, a place often returned to after the actual voyage had been completed. For neither of them was the Orient exhausted by their uses of it, even if there is often a quality of disappointment, disenchantment, or demystification to be found in their writing. The paramount importance of their work to a study such as this of Orientalist minds in the 19th century is that they produced work that is connected to and depends upon the kind of Orientalism we have so far discussed. It yet remains independent from it. First, there is the matter of their work's scope. Neval produced Voyage en Orient as a collection of travel notes, sketches, stories, and fragments. His preoccupation with the Orient to be found in Les Chimères, in his letters, in some of his fiction and other prose. Flaubert's writing, both before and after his visit, is soaked in the Orient. It appears in the Carnet de Voyage and the first version of La Tentation de Saint Antoine, and the two later versions, as well as in Herodias Salammbô and the numerous reading notes, scenarios, and unfinished stories still available to us, which have been intelligently studied by Bruno. These are echoes of Orientalism in Flaubert's other major novels too. In all, both Neval and Flaubert continually elaborate their Oriental material and absorb it variously into the special structures of their personal aesthetic projects. This is not to say, however, that the Orient is incidental to their work. Rather, by contrast, such as with writers like Lane, for whom both men bore it shamelessly, Chateaubriand, Lamartine, Renan, Sacy, their Orient was not so much grasped, appropriated, reduced, or codified as lived in, exploited aesthetically and imaginatively as a roomy place full of possibility. What mattered to them was the structure of their work as independent, aesthetic, and personal fact, not by ways of which, if one one could effectively dominate or set down the Orient graphically. Their egos never absorbed the Orient, nor totally identified it with documentary and textual knowledge, with official Orientalism in short. On one hand, therefore, the scope of their Oriental work exceeds the limitations imposed by orthodox Orientalism. On the other, the subject of their work is more than Oriental or Orientalistic, even though they do their own Orientalizing of it. It quite consciously plays with the limitations in the challenges presented to them by the Orient and by knowledge about it. Naval, for example, believes that he has to infuse what he sees with vitality, since, he says, the sky and the sea are still there, the Oriental sky and the Ionian sky give each other the sacred kiss of love each morning, but the earth is dead, dead because man has killed it and the gods have fled. Oh, no, I was not meant to do that. Right, that one. If the Orient is to live at all, now that the gods have fled, it must be through his fertile efforts in the Voyage en Orient, the narrative consciousness and constantly energetic voice, and in a constantly energetic voice moves through the labyrinths of Oriental existence, armed, Naval tells us, with two Arabic words, tayeb, the word for assent, and manfish, the word for rejection. These two words enable him selectively to confront the antithetical Oriental world, to confront it and draw out from it secret principles. He is predisposed to recognize that the Orient is le pays de rêve, the roads of dreams and illusion, which, like the veils he sees everywhere in Cairo, conceal a deep, rich fund of female sexuality. See? Exactly what I was saying. Naval repeats Lane's experience of discovering the necessity for marriage in Islamic society, but unlike Lane, he doesn't attach himself to a woman. His liaison with Zainab is more than socially obligatory. I must unite with a guileless young girl who is of the sacred soil, which is our first homeland. I must bathe myself in the vivifying springs of humanity from which poetry and the faith of our fathers flowed forth. I would like to lead my life like a novel, willingly placing myself in situations of these active and resolute heroes who wish at all costs to create drama around them, a knot of complexity, in a word, action. He invests himself in the Orient, producing not so much a novelistic narrative as an everlasting intention, never fully realized, to fuse mind with physical action. This anti-narrative, this para-pilgrimage, is a swerving away from discursive finality of the sort envisioned by previous writers. Connected physicality and sympathetically to the Orient, Naval wanders informally through its riches and cultural, and principally feminine, ambience, locating in Egypt especially that maternal center, at once mysterious and accessible, from which all wisdom derives. His impressions, dreams, and memories alternate with sections of ornate, mannered narrative, done in Oriental style. The hard realities of travel in Egypt, Lebanon, Turkey mingle with the design of deliberate digression, as if Naval were repeating Chateaubriand's itinerary using an underground, though far less imperial and obvious route. Michel Boteau puts it beautifully. To Naval's eyes, Chateaubriand's journey remains a voyage along the surface, while his own is calculated, utilizing annex centers, lobbies of ellipses engobbling the principal centers, allowing him to place in evidence, by parallax, all the dimensions of the snare harbored by normal centers. Excuse me. Wandering the streets or environs of Cairo, Beirut, or Constantinople, Naval is always lying in wait for anything that will allow him to sense a cavern extending beneath Rome, Athens, and Jerusalem, the principal cities of the itinerary. Hello, darling. How is it that tea gets cold really quickly in summer as well? I don't know. I love the name, by the way. Just as the three cities of Chateaubriand are in communication, Rome, with its emperors and popes, resembling the testament of Athens and Jerusalem, the caverns of Naval become engaged in intercourse. It is, I think it's 28 degrees clitoris right now. Even the two large plotted episodes, The Tale of Caliph Hakim and The Tale of Queen of the Morning, that will supposedly convey a durable, solid narrative discourse, seem to push Naval away from overground finality, edging him further and further into a haunting internal world of paradox and dream. Both tales deal with a multiple identity, one of whose motifs, explicitly stated, is incest, and both return us to Naval's quintessential Oriental world of uncertain, fluid dreams, indefinitely multiplying themselves into past resolution, definitiveness, materiality. Now here, we still get this Eurocentric view of what the Oriental is. It's still centering his experience and his expectation. So the Orient never really gets to realize itself, or he never really gets to understand the Orient as it is through the people, because he is constantly imposing his expectations and his knowledge and his experience onto what the Orient should be and is in his mind. His Carnet for the Voyage supplies us, I think, with two perfect texts for understanding how his Orient untied itself from anything resembling an Orientalist conception of it, even though his work depends on it, to a certain extent. First, his appetite strived to gather experience and memory indiscriminately. I want to assimilate to all of nature and the strange woman and memories of things I've already seen, I think. I don't know. I can't translate French that quickly. The second elaborates a bit on the first. Les rêves et la folie, les désirs, of dreams and foolishness. We lift up Europe, and the stream is realized. Her or she. Je l'avais fui, je l'avais perdu, I am lost. I don't know what that means. I would like for people who are writing in a certain language to translate into that certain language for the readers of that language that they are writing in. I love you, Edward Saïd. But the fuck? The fuck? Oh, Vassir d'Orient, the Vessel of the Orient, yes. The Orient symbolizes Naval's dream quest and the fugitive woman central to it, both as desire and loss. The Vessel of the Orient refers enigmatically to either a woman or the vessel carrying the Orient, or possibly Naval's own vessel towards the Orient, his prose, voyage. In either case, Orient is defined with commemorative absence. How else can we explain the Voyage, a work so original and individual of mind, the lazy use of such large swatches of lane incorporated without a murmur by Naval and his descriptions of it? It is having failed both in his search for stable Oriental reality and in his intent to give systemic order to his re-presentation of it. Naval was employing the borrowed authority of a canonized Orientalist text. After his voyage, the earth remained dead, and aside from his brilliantly crafted but fragmented embodiment, his self was no less drugged and worn out than before. Therefore, the Orient seemed retrospectively to belong to a negative realm, in which failed narratives, disordered chronicles, mere transcriptions of scholarly texts were its only possible vessel. At least Naval did not try to save his project by wholeheartedly giving himself up to French designs on the Orient, although he did resort to Orientalism to make some of his points. In contrast to Naval's negative vision of the emptied Orient, Flaubert's is eminently corporeal. His travel notes and letters reveal a man scrupulously reporting events, personas, and settings, delighting in their strangeness, never attempting to reduce the incongruities before him. In what he writes, or perhaps because he writes, the premium is the eye-catching, translated into self-consciously worked-out phrases. For example, inscriptions and bird droppings are the only two things in Egypt that give any indication of life, which is bullshit. It is a full-ass country. His tastes run into the perverse, whose form is often a combination of extreme animality, even grotesque nastiness, with extreme and sometimes intellectual refinement. Yet his particular kind of perversity was not something merely observed, but it was also studied, and came to represent an essential element in his fiction. The familiar oppositions or ambivalences, as Harry Levine has called them, that roam through Flaubert's writing, flesh versus mind, Salome versus St. John, Salammbô versus St. Anthony, are powerfully validated by what he saw in the Orient, given his eclectic learning. He could see there the use of partnership between knowledge and carnal grossness. In Upper Egypt, he was taken with ancient Egyptian art and its precocity and deliberate lubricity. So dirty pictures existed even so back in antiquity. How much more the Orient really answered questions than it raised them is evident in the following. You, Flaubert's mother, asked me whether the Orient is up to what I imagined it to be. Yes, it is, and more than that. It extends far beyond the narrow idea I had. I have found clearly delineated everything that was hazy in my mind. Facts have taken place in suppositions, so excellently that it's often as though I was suddenly coming upon old forgotten dreams. And now you see how that idea of déjà vu kind of fits into both of their works, because he's talking about something that is remembered but not really. It is a feeling of, I have been here before. The reason that he has been here before is because he is basing his understanding of the Orient on Orientalists that came before him, and he is still looking at it through an Orientalist lens, through a European and a Eurocentric lens. And that is why it feels like déjà vu, because he is expecting to see something and he is looking for that thing. And because he is not engaging with the local people about their lived realities and their understandings of life and their ways of life, he is still engaging with the Eurocentric understanding of what the Orient is. He is not experiencing anything different to what any of the early Orientalists did anyway. Flaubert's work is so complex and vast to make any simple account of his Oriental writing sketchy and hopelessly incomplete. Nevertheless, in the context created by other writers on the Orient, a certain number of main features in Flaubert's Orientalism can be fairly described. Making allowances for the difference between candidly personal writing, letters, travel notes, and diary jottings, and formally aesthetic writing, like novels and tales, we can remark that Flaubert's Oriental perspective is rooted in an eastward and southward search for a visionary alternative, which meant gorgeous color in contrast to the greyish tonality of the French provincial landscape. It meant exciting spectacle instead of humdrum routine, and the perennially mysterious in place of the all too familiar. When he actually visited it, however, this Orient impressed him with its decrepitude and senescence. Like every other Orientalism then, Flaubert's is revivalist. He must bring the Orient to life, And it is only through a European understanding that the Orient can be brought to life to them, because they don't understand any other ways of existence as life. They see it as anti-civilization or non-civilization. He must deliver to himself and his readers, and his experience of it in books and on the spot, and his language for it. That will do the trick. His novels of the Orient accordingly were labored historical and learned reconstructions. Carthage, in Salammbô, and the products of St. Anthony, fervid in imagination, were authentic fruits of Flaubert's wide reading in the mainly Western sources of the Oriental religions, warfare, rituals, and societies. See, he is not trying to understand. He's not trying to understand the place and the people for who they are and what the place is, and explore the landscape to get an understanding of truth. He is exploring the landscape to get an understanding of exploitation, of how to exploit a place for personal gain, for his own writing to progress, his own novels, his own stories to be written. Like, what can this place give me in terms of my own writing and my own story? What is it going to add to my life? It's why I don't do travel writing. Because whenever there is I visit new places to experience things for myself, to go to a concert, a secret concert at midnight in London at a record store, where I see a band I've never seen before. And the opening acts are bands that I'd never even heard of. That doesn't make for good travel writing, because you're not really giving an understanding of the place. I am absorbing that experience for myself, and that is why I don't write the typical travel writing. You can understand why, aside from the question of access, and access to power, access to capital, access to the kind of visas that open doors for you. Access is one of the reasons that you will find the largest amount of people who do travel shows and cooking all over the world, and eating in different restaurants all over the world are white men, because they have the access, but also they have the ego to impose themselves onto a place they don't understand. And it is always white men. Any thoughts? Though I do understand that writing about a secret concert at midnight at a record store with a band that I only ever dreamt of seeing, and hearing these new bands that I never even heard of, does make for quite an interesting story. What the formal aesthetic work retains over and above the marks of Flaubert's voracious readings and recensions are memories of Oriental travel. The Bibliothèque has it that an Orientalist is a man of many travels. Only unlike most other such travelers, Flaubert put his voyages to ingenious use. Most of his experiences are conveyed in theatrical form. He is interested not only in the content of what he sees, but like Renan, how he sees it. By the way in which the Orient, sometimes horribly, but always attractively, seems to present itself to him. Flaubert is its best audience. Kar El Anin Hospital, well maintained, the work of Clot Bey. His hands are still to be seen. Pretty case of syphilis in the ward of Abbas Mamelukes. Several have it in the arse. At a sign from the doctor, all stood up on their beds, undid their trouser belts like it was an army drill, and opened their anuses with their fingers to show their, I will not say this, enormous infundibula. One had a growth of hair inside. One old man's prick, entirely devoid of skin. I recoiled from the stench. Hands curved backwards, nails as long as claws. One could see the bone structure of his torso as clearly as a skeleton. The rest of his body, too, was fantastically thin, and his head was ringed with whitish leprosy. The dissecting room, on the table an Arab cadaver, wide open, beautiful black hair. Vivid descriptions, not afraid, but also privileged, incredibly privileged in the way he writes about these people as if they are not people. And this is a narrative we still see today. The way those men on those videos that were released in the files, the way they talk about girls, like they're not human beings. They are there for his consumption, for his interest, for his understanding of a world foreign to him. Just like those girls were on that island for their consumption. It's all interlinked. The way in which power sees the world and the way in which power abuses the world. The lurid detail of the scene is related to us to many scenes in Flaubert novels, with illness presented to us as if a clinical theatre. His fascination with dissection and beauty recalls, for instance, the final scene culminating in Marto's ceremonial death. In such scenes, sentiments of repulsion or sympathy are repressed. What matters is the correct rendering of exact detail. The most celebrated moments in Flaubert's Oriental travel have been to do with Kucha Kanem, a famous Egyptian dancer and courtesan he encountered in Wadi Halfa. He had read in Lane about the Almes and the Kawals, dancing girls and boys respectively, but it was his imagination rather than Lane's that could immediately grasp as well as enjoy the most metaphysical paradox of the Alme profession and the meaning of her name. In Victory, Joseph Conrad was to repeat Flaubert's observation by making his musical heroine, Alma, irresistibly attractive and dangerous to Axel Haste. Alema in Arabic means learned woman. It was the name given to women in conservative 18th century Egyptian society who were accomplished reciters of poetry. In Hindi, a lot of women who are poets, kavita, or in Arabic, alema, in some pronunciations. In Hindi, we say aas karta ho, which means let me tell you a couplet. And it's usually biting words. And a lot of people used to... The OG rap battles were a battle of words with rhyming couplets in Hindi, Sanskrit, or Urdu, Arabic, Farsi, all of these languages. And it's quite interesting. The original rap battles. By the mid-19th century, the title was also used as a sort of guild name for dancers who were also prostitutes. And such was Kuchakanem, whose dance, La Bielle, Flaubert watched before he slept with her. She was surely the prototype of several of his novel female characters in her learned sensuality, delicacy, and, according to him, mindless coarseness. What he especially liked about her was that she seemed to place no demands on him. While the nauseating odor of her bedbugs mingled enchantingly with the scent of her skin, which was dripping with sandalwood. After his voyage, he had written Louise Colette reassuringly that the Oriental woman is no more than a machine. She makes no distinction between one man and another. Kuchak's dumb and irreducible sexuality followed Flaubert's mind to wonder and ruminations, whose haunting power over him reminds us somewhat of Des Lauriers and Frederick Moreau at the end of Sentimental Education. As for me, I scarcely shut my eyes, watching that beautiful creature asleep. She snored, her head against my arm. I had slipped my forefinger under her necklace. My night was long, infinitely intense reverie, which is why I stayed. I thought of my night in Paris brothels. A whole series of old memories came back, and I thought of her dance, of her voice as she sang songs for me that were without meaning and even without distinguishable words. Of course, indistinguishable. They never bothered to learn Arabic. The Oriental woman is an occasion and an opportunity for Flaubert's musings. He is entranced by her self-sufficiency, emotional carelessness, and also by what, lying next to him, she allows him to think. Less a woman than a display of impressive but verbally inexpressive femininity. She is the prototype of Flaubert's Salammbô and Salome, as well as all the versions of carnal female temptation to which his Saint Anthony is subject. Like the Queen of Sheba, who also danced the bee, she could say, were she able to speak, Je ne suis pas une femme, je ne suis un monde. I am not a woman, I am the world. Looked at from another angle, Kuchak is a disturbing symbol of fecundity, peculiarly Oriental in her luxuriant and seemingly unbounded sexuality. Her home near the upper reaches of the Nile occupied a position structurally similar to the place where the veil of Tanit, the goddess described as omnifecunde, is concealed in Salammbô. Yet, like Tanit, Salome and Salammbô herself, Kuchak was doomed to remain barren, corrupting without issue. How much she and the Oriental world she lived in came to intensify for Flaubert his own sense of barrenness, indicated in the following. We have a large orchestra, a rich palette, a variety of resources. We know many more tricks and dodges, probably, than we'd ever known before. No, what we lack is the intrinsic principle, the soul of the thing, the very idea of the subject. We take notes, we make journeys, emptiness, emptiness. We become scholars, archaeologists, historians, doctors, cobblers, people of taste. What good is all of that? Where's the heart, the verve, the sap? Where to start, where to go? We are good at sucking, we play a lot of tongue games, we pet for hours, but the real thing, to ejaculate, beget the child. Woven through all of Flaubert's Oriental experiences, exciting or disappointing, is an almost uniform association between the Orient and sex. And this is common among all people who write about especially women from other cultures. Like, this bit of hair is just always annoying me. I'm so sorry. In making this association, Flaubert was neither the first nor the most exaggerated instance of a remarkably persistent motif in Western attitudes of the Orient. And indeed, the motive itself is singularly unvaried, although Flaubert's genius may have done more than anyone else's could give it artistic dignity. Why the Orient seems to still suggest not only fecundity but sexual promise and threat, untiring sensuality, unlimited desire, deep generative energies, is something on which one could speculate. It's not the province of my analysis here, alas, despite its frequently noted appearance. Nevertheless, one must acknowledge its importance as something eliciting complex responses and sometimes a frightening self-discovery in the Orientalists, and Flaubert was an interesting case in point. And I think it's important that Saïd stopped there with that discussion of sensuality and sexuality in Orientalist writing, because I don't think he could have done it justice. Because he did not, in the time that he was writing this, have the feminist language or the language of not just feminism, but of gendered studies to articulate what we know now how to articulate. Also, I'm taking suggestions for any books that you want to read for Tuesday's reading. We have finished Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. I wanted to read Black AF history, but I don't think I should. And that is because I am not black. I have been asked to read Black AF history. And so I thought about it. And reading the first few pages, I said, no, it is not my place to read this. It is not my verbiage. And I already feel uncomfortable using certain words that are written on the page. I don't think I should read it, so please stop suggesting Black AF history. I will read it in my own time. But if you want somebody to do readings of Black AF history, I will ask somebody in the server if they can do it as well, but I doubt there will be anybody, because the readings are at odd times for people in the US. And this is free labor, and I don't expect anybody else to do the labor that I'm doing for free. So we cannot read Black AF history. I would like for you to suggest any books that we could read for the readings on race and or empire for Tuesdays. Because, we have finished the one book and we are now on to the other. I can't tell you what is in our library, though. I can read something on abolition, but we are already doing that. We do our gender readings. I can go to Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, which is a fantastic book. But yeah, let's see how it goes. So please, if you have any suggestions, I have other books that I downloaded recently. Queer Theory, A Critical of Poverty Finance, The Class Struggle in Africa by Kwame Nkrumah, When Protest Becomes a Crime, which I've been wanting to read for a while, Digital Capitalism. There's a whole lot. So you can go through the library in my Discord server. You can join through the link in my bio, and you can go through those books that I have in that server and download whatever you want. And yeah, I think it's a lot. There's also a book by Lainey, a suggestion by Lainey, Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. But there's also something that I want to read quite interestingly is a book called Neither Settler Nor Native by one Mahmoud Mamdani. And you may recognize that name as Zoran Mamdani's father. So I am really interested in what he would have had to say about the exotification and the fetishization of women in what they called the Orient. But, well, he's dead. So we can't really ask Edward Said, what would you have said had you continued this conversation in the 70s? I'm glad he stopped there. But I'm also really interested. I'm like, why can't necromancy be a thing right now? I want necromancy to be a thing so I can ask him questions. Yeah, that's not the only reason. That's not the only person I would bring back from the dead. Oh, have you seen my favorite unboxing video? This is completely random, by the way. My favorite unboxing video on the internet is, "Hi, this is Bob the Necromancer. Welcome to another unboxing video." And you can imagine what it is. It doesn't show the whole thing, of course. It's just Bob the Necromancer. And I can't afford a necromancer in this economy, even in D&D. If you want an understanding of fetishization and the Orient and the near to the Far East, hit me up. We'll have a conversation about it, because this is something that I'm interested in writing about. I'm interested in researching. And you can look up a basic understanding of it in Ruby Hamad's White Tears, Brown Scars. She had a lot to say about it there, about fetishization and exotification of Oriental women. All right, let's get back to this. The Orient threw him back to his own human and technical resources. It did not respond, just as Kuchak did not to his presence. Standing before its ongoing life, Flaubert, like Lane before him, felt detached powerlessness, perhaps also the self-induced unwillingness to enter and become part of what he saw, because the Orientalists always thought themselves better than. This, of course, was Flaubert's perennial problem. It existed before before he went east, and it reminded him after the visit. Flaubert admitted the difficulty, the antidote to which was his work, especially in an Oriental work like The Temptation of Saint Antoine, to stress the form of encyclopedic presentation of material at the expense of human engagement in life. Indeed, Saint Anthony is nothing if not a man for whom reality is a series of books, spectacles, and pageants, rolling temptingly at a distance before his eyes. All of Flaubert's immense learning is structured, as Foucault has tellingly noted, like a theatrical, fantastical library, parading before the anchorite's gaze. Residually, the parade carries in its form Flaubert's memories of Qasr el-Aini, the syphilitics army drill, and Kuchak's dance. More to the point, however, is that St. Anthony is a celibate to whom temptations are primarily sexual. After putting up with every sort of dangerous charm, he is finally given a glimpse into the biological processes of life. He is delirious at being able to see life being born, a scene for which Flaubert felt himself to be incompetent during his Oriental sojourn. Yet, because Anthony is delirious, we are meant to read the scene ironically. What is granted to him at the end, the desire to become matter, to become life, is at best a desire, whether realizable and fulfillable or not, we cannot know. Despite the energy of his intelligence and enormous power of intellectual absorption, Flaubert felt in the Orient first that the more you concentrate on it in detail, the less you grasp in the whole. And then second, that the pieces fall into place of themselves. At best, This produces a spectacular form, but remains barred to the West in its full participation. On one level, this was a personal predicament, as he devised means, some of which we have discussed in detail, for dealing with it. On a more general level, it was epistemological. I can never say that word. It was an epistemological difficulty for which, of course, the discipline of Orientalism existed. At one moment during his Oriental tour, he considered what the epistemological challenge could give rise to. Without what he called spirit and style of mind, he could get lost in archaeology. He was referring to a sort of regimented antiquarianism, by which the exotic and the strange would get formulated into lexicons, codes, and cliches of the kind he wanted to ridicule. Under the influence of such an attitude, the world will be relegated like a college. Teachers will be the law. Regulated, like a college. Teachers will be the law. Everyone will be in uniform. As against such as an imposed discipline, he no doubt felt that his own treatments of exotic material, notably Oriental material he had both experienced and read about for years, were infinitely preferable. In those, at least, there was room for a sense of immediacy, imagination, flair, whereas in the ranks of archaeological tomes, everything but learning had been squeezed out. And more than most novelists, Flaubert was acquainted with the organized learning of its products, its results. These products are clearly evident in the misfortunes of Bouvard and Péchuet, but they would have been as comically apparent in fields like Orientalism, whose textual attitudes belong in the world of rescued ideas. Therefore, one could either construct the world with verve and style, or one could copy it tirelessly according to impersonal academic rules of procedure. Again, we see that imposition of Western understanding. You cannot understand something unless you immerse yourself in it. You can never fully understand something unless you immerse yourself in it. Why do people say it's better to go as a traveler rather than a tourist? These guys were cultural tourists. They weren't writing for... They were writing for the sake of abusing and using a locale for their own ends, not for depicting the place they were going to as accurately as possible. Oh no, now he's going into the Victorian. I think I'm going to actually take a break there. Oh well, I've been on for 59 minutes, so it has been an hour. So we will not finish chapter 2. Surprise, surprise. Any questions? Alrighty, then I shall leave you all there. Remember, I do these readings for free, so please, if you can we hit that? Well, I don't think we'll hit the goal, but can we tackle that at least a little bit? Because yeah, I got bills to pay, and I'm without a job right now because Board Panda Daily closed down. Yay! So yeah. Whew. Let's see how this goes. And remember, drink water, eat something, take your meds, say something kind about yourself. Also, smash the motherfucking patriarchy, eat all the white men, and remember to be kind to yourself. Tomorrow we will be back. I may actually take a break tomorrow because we are heading to the coast on Friday for the weekend, and so I will be away for the weekend. I will be at the beach. I will be at the beaches, and I will be swimming and ignoring my phone. So it is lovely. So I might actually take a break tomorrow and not read, depending on whether I am staying at my... Here's the thing. I'm going with my parents. Oh, wait. I did something wrong here. I'm driving with my parents. And that means I have to stay over at their place on Thursday night because we're leaving at the crack of dawn on Friday, which means that everybody is getting showered, getting dressed, getting into the car, and I am promptly falling asleep because I do not travel well. I don't like it. Or if I don't sleep, I'm going to be putting on an audiobook and ignoring everyone. Alrighty, well, if I see you tomorrow, I see you tomorrow. If not, have a wonderful weekend. And remember, although it is payday today, do not go on a spending spree. I need to make some payments now, and then I shall see you all on the flip side. Fare thee well, and see you soon.